Hi there. So today we're going to take a look at the 2020 Mission Driven Planner, which is an 11-page document that's available on my website that you can use to help reflect on the past year and think ahead to 2020 and think about some of your goals for the coming year and how you might use that process to help focus more on the things that brought you to the mental health field, the things that brought you to the mental health or behavioral health field. The reason you got into this work, the things you care about, the things you're passionate about, the things you're good at, the unique parts of who you are that you bring to your work, and how those unique things can contribute to a better world. Because I think they can. I think you are an amazing leader. I think that people are interested in what you have to say and want to connect with you and find out what you're passionate about. And I think passion is contagious. So I'm really excited to go through this process with you. So the planner is 11 pages long, and that's only because there's a few pages that are repeated. So the first page is reflecting on your mission, looking back over 2019. Then we're going to go through some thinking ahead to 2020. We're going to do a sort of miracle question, which is one of my favorite things to do, and we'll do some visualization. Then we're going to talk about some examples of things you might choose to focus on. And then there's several pages, well, 2 pages that you can use to take each area you want to focus on and drill down into some of the details. So there's each of these have 2 pages, and I gave you 3 copies of that section in here. So you could do that on 3 areas, or you could make multiple copies. And then at the end, we'll go back over some of the things that'll help set you up for success. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit more about, why I made the planner, why it's important. So let's take a minute and talk about that. So a lot of people who become leaders in behavioral health agencies started off as clinicians, doing some kind of clinical work, right? So you might have started off being a therapist or a case manager, running groups, developing programs. Well, most people don't start off developing programs. Usually you start off doing something really direct where you work one-on-one with people or in groups of people or with families, and you get to see every day the people whose lives you are affecting, right? You get to connect with them. You have a personal relationship with them. You know how they're doing, and because of that how the work you're doing together is going. You know if there are setbacks, whether those are things that you had an impact on or whether those are just things that happen in life. You get to see how people are harnessing their strengths. You get to see how their lives are improving. It's a very rewarding experience, and often that is what people got into this field to do, is to help people. So when you're working one-on-one with people or directly with people, you get to have those experiences all the time where you just get to notice how your relationship and how the work you're doing is helping them. It's just helping. It's making the world a better place, right? And that's great. And then a lot of our really skilled clinicians end up becoming leaders. And the idea is I'll help even more people, which is really the idea of being a leader, is that, you can help not just the people you're directly helping, but the people you supervise are also helping people and you're helping them, and so on and so on. But the problem is you don't get to see those direct relationships anymore. You don't have that immediate feedback of, well, I just saw in that person's eyes that the thing we were talking about really helped them. Or, I could tell because this person came in and, they've never gone out and gone to a movie with a friend before and they did that. Or this person, maybe you work with someone who gets a job and it's going well. Or maybe they get a job and it's going well and then things don't go so well, but it's the first time they've had a job that long. Or maybe they learn important lessons that they're planning to use for the future. So there's so many different ways to define success when you're doing individual work and when you can connect directly with people, because people are complex but you can you can perceive that on a really direct level, right? It feels very real. It really touches your heart. When you're a leader, it's a little tougher to get that same feeling. You definitely get it sometimes when you're talking to someone you supervise or to a program manager. You get to do that direct support to those people. But you might feel a little bit like you're not getting to do that as much as you want when you're a leader in an organization or in those roles. So the whole idea of the Mission Driven Planner is to give you an opportunity to reconnect with that part of you that cares deeply and feels passionate and wants to make a difference in the world, because we need that. We need people who have that connection to their inner self. It makes you a better leader. It makes you a better community member. It's good for you. It's good. There's all this research that it's good for you to have that kind of experience in your life. So that is our plan with setting up this activity. All right, so let's dig in. All right, so the first question here in the Mission Driven Planner is thinking about focusing on your mission. So if your agency has a mission statement, you could jot that down here. If you don't have a formal mission statement, you could just sort of spitball here, like, what is the purpose you serve? What is the point of your organization? What is your purpose? What are you guys doing? What are you trying to do in the world, right? And then the next question is, how would you describe your own professional mission? Or what do you feel destined to do to contribute to a better world? And I love that analogy of, where does your unique set of strengths and skills and knowledge intersect with a thing the world needs? And when you can find that sweet spot, it's kind of magical. So think about, what are the things you have that you bring to the world, and what does the world need? And where do you see that intersection? And kind of that's one way to think about your mission. And then think for a minute back on 2019. What did your agency accomplish? What have you guys been working on? What have you been doing well? What are your agency's strengths? So I, even as a clinician, was a strength-based clinician. I'm very big on strength-based stuff. So this is how I feel about organizations too. We spend a lot of time thinking about what's not going well, but we should also think about what's going well. So if you thought of your organization as, say, like a client you were working with, what is the organization doing well? What are some of the factors that are present at your organization that are really helping your organization succeed? And now thinking about your professional life, what did you accomplish in 2019? Where did you make progress? Like, what strengths do you have that you were able to bring to your work to lead to success? And spend a few minutes really thinking about that, because it's so easy to overlook the things you've accomplished. Try to think back to the beginning of the year and how things are different from now. If it helps, you might go back through your planner or your meetings, in your Outlook calendar or whatever you use to organize your appointments. Maybe go through your Facebook posts. That's sometimes an easier way to see that. But it just kind of reflect back on some of the things that happened over the past year, and what you've accomplished, what you've made progress on, what your strengths were that you brought to your work. Okay, so that is reflecting on 2019. And once you've done some of that, let's start thinking ahead about 2020. So often when people are thinking about the upcoming year, they're thinking about, what are all the things that are going to happen this year that I need to consider when I'm making a plan? So start by kind of jotting some of those things down. What is coming up that you know is going to have an impact? Are you taking on new programs? Are you merging with another organization? Do you know there are some key staff who are retiring? Are there changes coming to your funding streams? Those would be some examples. So, and then the next question is kind of a challenge. So, you've probably heard this saying that every crisis is an opportunity. Well, this is something they taught back when I was in grad school. I don't know if it's still part of the curriculum, but back in social work school, they used to say that it was probably a little bit of a co-opted thing from another culture, but it was about the idea that anytime when a person is in a crisis, that there's risk involved and there's danger, but there's also an opportunity. So if you think about things you're worried about for 2020 for your agency, things that might be dangerous or risky or, potentially problematic, maybe another way to think about that is, in what way would those be opportunities? So let's say your entire funding system is changing and you're going to have to bill differently and you're going to have to record services differently. That could feel like a crisis. It could feel really dangerous and risky. What are some of the opportunities that could be inherent in that? So, for example, if your funding is changing, maybe there's an opportunity to increase your funding. Maybe there's an opportunity to improve the way you're doing things in a way that makes services better. So that's something to just kind of reflect on. What challenges would you be expecting to happen that might get in the way of your big ideas. So that could be things like maybe you're new at an organization and you know there's some work that needs to happen around culture. Maybe people aren't feeling really safe. Maybe there's a lot of fear around turnover. Maybe people are burned out. So those would be things to kind of reflect on and maybe list here as challenges you're expecting that could get in the way of your work on your big ideas. Another thing would be maybe there's some big administrative requirements that are coming down that really don't feel like they connect very closely with what you want to work on, but you're still going to have to do them. So then the next question here is, how will your strengths and the strengths of your agency help you overcome those challenges or maybe take advantage of those opportunities? One way to get to that is to think about how in the past different things that have come up, how your agency has handled that. How have you handled that? How have you been able to weather those storms, or how have you been able to turn different crises into opportunities? Of course, no one wants something bad to happen. No one wants, it would be great if you didn't have to ever worry about something unexpected happening, but you've probably had something unexpected happen if you've been doing this work, just in life, right? Unexpected things happen all the time. So just thinking about how have you handled that? How have your strengths? And when I say strengths, I don't just mean internal, but I do mean internal, but I also mean your external strengths, right? Your social supports, your peers, your team, your family, or your outside supports outside of work, your education, your skills, your knowledge. So all of that together, how have you been able to harness that in the past to take advantage of opportunities or to weather storms? And same with your agency. I know some organizations have a really tight-knit sense of support among their team, and that could be a very big strength, right, for helping you through difficult times. And then finally, let's just think for a minute about what parts of the next year feel exciting. What things have you thought about when you think about 2020 that just make your heart kind of sing, that make you feel like, ooh, that would be kind of fun to work on? Where do you feel hopeful? And I will say that sometimes in behavioral health, things don't feel very hopeful. It can start to feel like, well, there's just all of these things. We've got to worry about this change and that change, and none of it feels like it really is going to make a difference, but we still have to do it. And it's going to make everything really busy, and we don't feel like we have a choice in the matter. But I would encourage you to spend some time on this question and try to really think of some things you are hopeful about. Because I think it helps us avoid burnout if we have a chance to reflect on those things now and then. So, maybe it goes back to those opportunities we talked about above with, maybe there's some upcoming things that could be a crisis, but you're starting to think of some ways those things could be an opportunity. Maybe there's things you can't imagine that could happen, but you could imagine them if you think about them a little more. Like if there's some people who will be retiring, maybe something you could be interested and hopeful in is what the new people will be bringing to their role that will add to your team. Other things you might be hopeful about would be, perhaps you're working on growing, aspects of how your agency interacts with the community. Or maybe there are changes happening in the community that you're hopeful about. Maybe you're seeing some national trends that are starting to feel hopeful. There are some national trends in behavioral health that are, I think there's some changes happening around stigma, and some changes happening around making certain things accessible through technology. And so those things might be hopeful. But I think if you're having a hard time finding anything you feel hopeful about, it's also okay to just acknowledge that. It's okay to say, right now I'm really having a hard time accessing that feeling of hopefulness. So we're going to go on to some other activities in our next video that might help with that. So don't panic if you look at that question and you feel like, ugh, everything just feels really heavy and nothing feels hopeful right now. You're not a lost cause, right? We'll be able to figure it out together. So, and if you are feeling hopeful about lots of things, that's great. So list them out. All right, so I think we will wrap up there for today's video. As I said, we'll have 2 more videos going over the rest of the planner, and it's going to be pretty exciting because our next video is, if you skip ahead and read ahead here, you get to look at what I consider to be kind of like a miracle question, which is always one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things I learned about in therapy school was the miracle question, because I think it can really help you connect to what matters. So we're going to do that in our next video. In the meantime, if you haven't had a chance yet to download the planner, please check it out. I think it's helpful to have something tangible to work from. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or contact me through any of my social media avenues. My email address is ginger@missiondrivendata.com. And I will talk to you guys again in the next video. Okay, thanks. Bye.